Hey guys, Chris here. I'm going to show you today what I've been working on with a 2 MCP server setup. One MCP server, Model Context Protocol, is used to remote control content inside of Blender. It's going to build something simple, a little house, and then when it's done, the MCP servers will be used to move the house over into Unity. And there's some screenshots and stuff that are going on there as well along the way. The setup I have here, before I get into the details, is I have VS Code sort of sitting in the bottom of the screen. And it has been set up with an interface for letting Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT use MCP servers to manipulate these two applications and then move content from Blender over to Unity. So I'm first going to show you just the setup here, and then I'll show you an architecture diagram on how it's all tied together. So if you're not familiar with Model Context Protocol, the way it works is you can have something, a plugin. This is a plugin called Claude. And Claude enables you to attach a remote frontier model that's hosted along with an API key to VS Code. So I'm running VS Code right here, the whole thing. And then Claude is a free plugin, and then you put it, you wire it into whatever remote frontier model you're using. So I happen to use Anthropic's Claude. I also have Google Gemini, and I have ChatGPT. And I also happen to have Copilot over here, but unfortunately Copilot doesn't do MCPs yet. So once you set everything up here, you can actually chat like you would normally, but it has full context awareness. It's very agentic, and you'll see that here, and I'm going to show you in just a minute. But what it also has is an API for installing MCPs. So Claude is sort of the forerunner, the folks who've Anthropic created it, the protocol, and people are starting to adopt it. And so if you wanted something for Unity, there's a couple of them out there. There's only one that's registered with this particular browser, if you will, but there are other ones out there, and I tried 2 along the way. There's also one for Blender. There's one for web browsers. There's one for databases, you name it. You just come in here and look and see. And this is just one of many websites, but you basically install it, and it gives the ability for the model to have a registered MCP server with access to tools that it can use to do whatever it needs to do. So I've installed 2 for this demo. The first is Blender. It is registered, and when the model comes in and starts working inside of this Claude plugin, it knows it can use the Blender API, if you will, with this server. And so it can do things like get the scene info, get the object. It can actually, this one does a pretty good job of executing Blender code, which is a lot of what the work it does to move things around. And then there's also, it has the ability to go and grab 3D objects out of Hyper 3D. It gets Polyhaven if it wants. I don't really do that for this demo. And then I personally added the ability to export a screenshot. Not in this one, but in the Unity one you'll see. But it can actually still export a screenshot. So that's the MCP server. The other one is for Blender. The other one is MCP-unity. And you can get that one installed for free. It's open source. And it does various things. It runs tests. It gets the console. You got to have the console for being agentic. It adds sets to scene. And I added one to capture a scene and send back an image, because that's part of the workflow. So let me take a moment. I'm going to back out of this setup and show you what the system diagram looks like. So at the very top is just whatever model you're using, whatever's hosted. And it can be locally on your computer if you're running something like LM Studio and your computer's fast enough to actually run models. But I'm just attaching to Anthropic's API, and I pay as I go. And then in the videos you're going to see here in a minute, I go from Anthropic, and then I do ChatGPT, and then I do Gemini. They all support MCPs. Now here's the cool part. Claude, which is an open source plugin for VS Code, you can install it for free. It enables MCPs, as I showed you a second ago. And so Claude is that little box on the left here. It allows these MCP servers to run through standard I/O. I'm not sure if I can zoom in on this or not. Now I can't really zoom in on Mermaid Diagram, but standard I/O. Now there is a concept where you can remotely access MCP servers. That's fine. That would be if you're hosting an MCP server on a website somewhere. But a lot of the stuff that you want to do is locally as a developer, and you want to do it on the computer itself. So there's WebSockets and that kind of stuff that get opened up. In this case, the way it works is Klein opens up a standard I/O interface to the MCP server. And in this case, there's a JavaScript, there's Python. I wrote one for Node and JavaScript last week. These two happen to be just the different flavors, JavaScript or /TypeScript and Python. And Claude gives you these frameworks you can use, not Claude, but Anthropic gives you these frameworks you can use to build your own MCPs, which is really slick. So basically what happens is Klein spins up this server, you turn it on and make it active, and then it has a WebSocket, and then it talks to a Unity editor bridge. So in Unity, let me come over to this setup here. Here's the editor bridge right here. Let me just maximize Unity in a minute. Just a little window, MCP Unity, its server is started. You can stop the server and restart it. But when you install that plugin, when you install the MCP servers, it actually goes and configures an MCP server window for Unity right there. It's just a bridge. They can be done in TypeScript, C#. This one happens to be C#. And so that one's running and it's waiting. The same is also true on the Blender side. So over here in the diagram, I've got this little standard I/O interface to the Blender server. And it goes through a WebSocket. And then there's the Blender app. And that one is sitting here. And you can see Blender MCP. So this one, they just add a little extra file, and then you can just basically run it or disconnect it, etc. But so there's two pieces, to be clear, because I don't think I was very clear about that. But there are two pieces. There's the piece that you put into Klein, and I can show you what that looks like. There's a little configuration, Klein MCP settings, and you can see where I basically just registered the Blender MCP, and I've registered the Unity MCP. And there's some, you can actually, the cool part is you can set Klein up to do a lot of agentic work automatically. You can automatically approve the steps that it's taking. And that's what this little section is here, by the way. It can do all these things without having to ask me. It'll just go and go and go. It'll reach a maximum of like 20 commands. And then I say approve and keep going. And there's some auto approves I have up here that are registered as well for the MCP server for Blender. So this is we'll go back to that diagram. What I'm talking about here is these are the two tailwinds that are inside what I just showed you, the menuing option there for VS Code and Klein. They connect to WebSockets, and then the two editor windows I showed you in Unity and Blender, those are the other half. And they're just waiting. They're talking like any other sort of server connections, client host server connectors. Now, so I set that up. And here's the cool part. In addition to those two servers, Klein is project aware. So if you just look at the Windows folder here, this is what I'm working on. VS Code is looking in this folder. I have a bunch of extra stuff here that's just kind of junk. But the two interesting parts are the Blender project and the Unity project. So those two are what I have in the two windows here. And then VS Code is actually looking right here in the cdev Unity's MCP folder. It can look at the entire directory of the computer, but it starts wherever you have VS Code opened up, and there are those two projects right there. So it's aware of the directory. It can look at everything it needs to, and it can also talk to those two MCP servers through what I just showed you with those little plugins. And so it uses a bash terminal. It's really good with bash. I've been unimpressed with the PowerShell and the standard command prompt, but it really gets bash. Does a great job. And so what will happen is you'll see in a minute where it will go through, it'll work inside the Blender server, do some things, it's going to build a model, export it, and then the bash terminal can be used to move the model into the Unity project, and then it tells Unity, import the object into your screen, into your scene. I also added the ability to take a Unity screenshot on that server, and with just commands that's built into the Blender one, you can take the screenshot for Blender, which is great because you give it that feedback loop. So Claude, Claude, I didn't know this, but so did ChatGPT and Gemini, you'll see in a minute. You could use the web browser to open the image and get feedback on what they've done. So it gives that feedback loop, and they can make changes. So I'm going to show you videos of this, where all three are going. So these are sped up videos, and I'll walk you through what's happening. I'm going a little slower with the Claude. Claude's first, ChatGPT is second, and Gemini is third. So let me hit play and I'll walk you through what's happening here. Same as setup that I just showed you a second ago, but these are all high speed because it does take a while for it to do this. This isn't something that happens in just a couple of minutes on a video. So there in the top left, I have set up, enabled the servers. I just enabled the server on the Unity one. It's zipping through. I gave it a reference image. Let me pause just a minute. So I realized in another test that we were doing last couple of weeks that if I gave it a reference, it would help it be more accurate when it was building something as simple as a house. What you're going to find is it's kind of driving blind, and if it has a feedback loop, it can make the house a little better. And I tried using a reference image so that it could perhaps make the house even better. In my early test, it did a pretty good job of making an accurate house with nothing but the feedback loop, where it would open up the image of the screenshot of what it made and say, oh, that's not quite a house, let me try again. I honestly didn't get much value out of giving it the reference screenshot, but I thought I'd share with you. You could do that. You could pass it, hey, here's the reference image, which by the way is just like in my directory, house reference. And I just say, hey, open up this reference. There it is, and use that as your reference. And for what it's worth, I forgot to mention, this is the prompt. I'll put the prompt that I used in the video comments, but I started out with a simple prompt when I was first doing this. I've done this with Claude probably around 30 times just to see how far I could get it, and then kept working on it. Because it makes mistakes, just like humans do. So now, the prompt I have is this pretty lengthy looking prompt. It says, hey, this is your setup. Here's the folder structure. What is your goal? First, do this in Blender. Then next, export it. If it doesn't, take a screenshot. If it doesn't look good, go back and do it again until you get it right. Now, actually, this prompt, I kept trying to add other things. Trees, cars, large grounds. It was kind of okay. But this demo is the simpler one. I just want to get a good house going. And then once I've done it with Claude, I go back and do it with ChatGPT and with Gemini. So I'm going to continue this video and I'll show you. And what you're seeing here, by the way, is that agentic interface right here with Claude. I've got it just remember the bottom half of the screen. But it's also now got checkpoints. It has a local GitHub repo that it makes all on its own. You can have your own GitHub repo, but it makes one on its own. So as it's going through this stuff, it's making all sorts of changes. And you can go back and look at the checkpoints after it's blown through 20 commands. If you don't like something, you can dial it back. Say reset to right here and see what happened. And so that's what this little bar at the top is going on here. So it's looking at things, it's trying stuff out. If you watch in the top left corner as it's working in Blender, you see how it's thinking. Some of it was great, some of it wasn't great. I tell you, this version, the video that I got here, which was at the tail end of about a bunch of evenings worth of effort and over the weekend, is it was really having a hard time making the triangle part of the house. So a lot of these houses are kind of flat, not very impressive. But you'll see as this going, I've actually added a little comment and say, look, you need to make the command simpler for the MCP server. Blender can't handle that many at once. That server can't. Now I'm moving the camera in the top left. It's not doing that. I didn't add that functionality, though it's available. You could do it because it's a very generic interface for Blender, very generic interface for Unity. So I moved it around because I know it's going to take a screenshot and I wanted to see what it was making. And you might remember from the house that I showed you a second ago, it has a little circle and some windows and doors. And of course it has that really cute little roof. So not quite nailing it, but it's got a door, a couple of windows, and a little circle thing at the top. Okay, it keeps going. It gets pretty happy with what it's got. And then the next thing that it does is it decides, okay, I'm good. I'm going, and I think it's doing a couple more things here, but eventually it gets happy, and you'll see where it actually moves on. And oh, I had to change the color. I forgot. I was looking in the non-color mode. I moved the color. It took that picture. Bang. Let me just pause it right here. So here, it's gone through. It's doing a check. And I told it in the command, I said, hey, you need to add some colors as a part of the prompt because it was just kind of all gray blocks. So it's got a red roof, which is comparable to, this picture. White walls is great. Kind of some brown doors. There's obviously some Z fighting going there. It's not great. But it does do that. It takes the picture. What you're seeing on the bottom is the web browser. So as I mentioned earlier, it has a web browser built in. This is built into Klein, So I added manually the Unity server, MCP server, and the Blender server. Client has this built in. I think they introduced it a couple months ago or something. I came across it. Amazing. So it just kind of opens the file with a browser. I say use your browser, open it up. It does that inside the client experience, which is super slick. And then it looks at it. It decides whether or not it's happy. In this case, I'm not very happy because I gave it a reference and it doesn't really look like an amazing house. So not too impressive, but still, it's doing the workflow, and that's what the video is about, is the workflow. So it sees the house, it's like, hey, it looks good, it's going to close the browser, and then check this out. It actually exports right there. You can see the export command, FBX export, and it's done. That's super cool. It gives us back the path. There's that path right there. And then you're going to see right here in the terminal, in the bottom right, where it says, C, dev, Unity, you're going to see it move that file over. There's the command, and so it copied it over. And check it out, it's already popped up into the Unity window right here in the Assets folder in the Models directory. And then the next command is to actually bring it into the scene. And so it takes a moment, and you can see it's kind of slow. This, again, is like twice the speed. But there's it popped in. Again, I'm moving the video camera, not the server. And check this out right there. You see the maximum requests reached. So a lot of that stuff I have in automatic. But, I don't want to just blow all my money while it's trying to figure things out. So I let it sit at the standard 20 API requests before it keeps going. So it doesn't just go on all night or something. So I did that. I go, yep, keep going. And it's supposed to take a screenshot, which it did. Now it loaded the screenshot. There it is. Now it's looking at the screenshot from Unity. So I added that into that model, the MCP server. And now I can check its work there. And when I was originally working, that was all I was doing, just using Unity. But when I brought in Blender, I said, well, you can look at the Blender picture too. So it's checking to make sure it has this house in there, and then it does, and it's going to say it's done. Okay, next up, let me pause for a second. Next, I've changed the model. So the model is no longer ChatGPT, it's no longer Claude. I went into the settings. Let me just kind of flip over and show that to you one more time. I went into the settings here, and I flipped it over to ChatGPT under OpenAI, which is right here. Just like that. I gave it a different key, different API key, and that's what you're seeing now. It's about to let ChatGPT build a house. Same workflow, everything's the same, including copying and pasting the prompt into a brand new window here just for ChatGPT. So let's watch this one go. This is a lot faster, okay? Just because it's the same workflow, but you can see what happens. Now it comes in, and the scene's empty, it starts over, I clean everything out, and it's making the code to build the house. Now I was really pleased, I was almost super excited because look at how, it's not just blocks anymore. It's actually got a nice triangular roof. Unfortunately, to my sadness, ChatGPT didn't actually move the roof up and make a nice looking house. It just left it right there. But still not bad. And in a moment, when I remember to click the color, I don't know why the scene, I keep forgetting to click the color, but it actually has a red roof, which is cute, and a white building. And it takes a screenshot here from Blender. There's a little glitch, and then it comes back, and there it is. And it's like, okay, I got myself a house. Sweet. And you'll see over here is actually exported it. And then it's going to show up over in the Unity window in just a second. Oh, there it is. There's the export right there. And as it is in Unity, I move the camera again, and there it is. It's happy. And then last but not least, right here, I catch, oh, look at me. I got the timing. It's now Gemini. You see I've actually switched to Google Gemini. And we're going to do the same thing with Gemini, and you'll see the house it makes. Same prompt, copy and paste the same prompt. There's my prompt right there. Just paste it in. It initially had an error, but it figured itself out. And this one's cute. Look at the roof. It actually has a pyramid for a roof, which is not bad. Unfortunately, that's kind of all it does. It doesn't really get much further. To be clear, though, Gemini is using an MCP server. So did ChatGPT. He used both MCP servers. ChatGPT did too. It's just not going all out and making something cool. Now, I went through, spun that camera. It took the picture. And you can see here I'm pausing it. FBX export. So it's onto the export. And it's done. And now it's going to use the terminal here to move it over. It just moves it over. There it is in Unity. And then you'll see it pop up in Unity in just a second with that last command, which is the import to the asset to the scene, or add asset to the scene. And there it is. It took a last little picture at the end. And that is the whole agentic workflow at like 10x speed, I think is what I did there for you guys, in what you're seeing here. So it used all these pieces and all the workflows, and just depending on the model, it would take, it maybe take probably 5 to 10 minutes, something like that, depending on whether or not it aced it. And now I worked with this a lot. It was a lot of trial and error, and it's not consistent. The models make different choices every single time, so there's not like some sort of consistency in what it will do there in terms of repeating the same actions yet. But it does show that you, on your own computer, with pay for use services, so every time you send tokens, that's when you get charged. You can access those APIs, 3 different models I used here, and local MCP servers on your computer. And they don't have to be, the computer doesn't have to be super fast because you're not running the local inference. All the inference is done up here in the cloud. But as long as you got VS Code and you got Klein and a couple of credit cards around to these different API servers, you can run your own MCP experience, and you can even build in feedback loops like web browsing to see the images that you've made. And I have a friend who's actually hooked up Gemini's streaming experience. I haven't done that yet, but it's not just images anymore, it's an entire video feed. Anyhow, if you thought that was fun, give me some comments. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope to see some of your own MCP server work soon.